Like all prison systems, there are many tiers of repression. For example, in the British prison system, apart from those prisoners on so-called normal location, there are prisoners held in places like the Close Supervision Centres or the separation wings. And these are prisoners labelled as troublemakers or being politically motivated. These people are held in clinical isolation and subject to physical and psychological abuse. The Close Supervision Centres were created in 1998. There were units before then, and I was in one. I was in the whole special unit. But within the unit itself, it was a fairly open liberal regime. And then in 1998, it was decided to shut those particular units because it was claimed by the Home Secretary at the time, Michael Howard, that we were being appeased, okay? So what they then done, they opened up what was called the Close Supervision Centres, which were total isolation units. So as soon as a prisoner entered one, they were placed in a solitary confinement cell and were physically brutalised. The Chief Inspector of Prisons at the time wrote a highly critical report of the Close Supervision Centres, saying that they breached human rights and could not be justified. So what then happened was the prison system brought in prison-hired psychologists and psychiatrists to justify and legitimise the Close Supervision Centres and say that, in fact, they weren't about punishment and repression, they were about treatment. The reality is that in the hidden, secretive world of prisons, human rights do not exist. And so-called democracy or accountability does not exist in the treatment of prisoners. There is systematically constant human rights abuse, particularly of prisoners who resist and fight back. The Prison Solidarity Network is essentially an abolitionist group. We believe in the abolition of the prison system in the context of wider social and political change. We're involved in a number of campaigns organised and centred around the human rights abuses inflicted on prisoners. The Close Supervision Centres are torture centres, okay? Men within them are being psychologically tortured and physically brutalised. And yet, prison-hired psychologists and psychiatrists are providing a veneer of legitimacy to that treatment. We're currently involved again in a campaign against the use of psychiatrists and psychologists to justify such inhumane torture.